Every morning, it's the exact same routine. You get up, you get dressed, and then you feel it. Maybe it's in front of the mirror, or maybe it's the sudden, stubborn resistance when you try to button your favorite jeans. Something is changing around your middle, and it makes absolutely no sense. Because you haven't changed how you eat. You're still tracking your steps, hitting the gym, or doing the exact same workouts that always used to work. You might even be eating less than you did 5 years ago. And yet, your body is completely refusing to cooperate. It feels stubborn, unfair, and incredibly confusing. If you are living this right now, I want you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to tell you changes everything. This is not standard weight gain. Your body hasn't failed you. You are experiencing a completely different biological shift. And once you understand the hidden hormonal drivers behind why your body is storing fat differently right now, it will finally start to make sense. Welcome back to the pause point, or welcome if this is your very first time here. This channel exists for one distinct reason: to hand you the evidence-based data that the mainstream healthcare system rarely provides about the menopausal transition. No miracle products, no lifestyle blame, just the hard science, explained like a conversation between friends. Today, we are talking about midlife belly fat, specifically why it suddenly appears, why it is so uniquely stubborn, and why the generic advice you've been given to shift it is likely working against your midlife biology, not with it. By the end of this video, you will clearly understand the 4 precise hormonal shifts driving this change. More importantly, you'll know exactly what the latest clinical research says actually helps. Before we get into the mechanisms, let's talk about the data. A study of women's health across the nation, known as the SWAN study, is one of the largest longitudinal studies of midlife women ever conducted. The researchers tracked over 3,300 women across nearly 2 decades. Here's what they found. Approximately 2 years before the final menstrual period, well into the perimenopause years, the rate of fat gain in women effectively doubled. At the same time, lean muscle mass began to decline. Same women, same diet, same lifestyle, different hormones, more fat. And the fat that was gained was disproportionately visceral fat, the fat that accumulates deep in the abdomen, around your organs, not the subcutaneous fat you can pinch under the skin. Researchers tracking body composition found that visceral fat increases from roughly 5 to 8% of total body fat before the menopausal transition, to 15 to 20% after it. That is not a small change, and it is almost entirely driven by hormones, not behavior. Here's where the science gets incredibly interesting. Mechanism number 1. Estrogen loss fundamentally changes where your body stores fat. Before perimenopause, healthy estrogen levels actively direct your fat storage outward, toward your hips and thighs. This isn't just about aesthetics, it is metabolically protective. Subcutaneous fat in the lower body is relatively inert. It sits there safely, causing far less systemic harm than what replaces it. As estrogen declines during perimenopause, that directional manager disappears. The storage system shifts inward to what's called the visceral depot, deep in your abdomen, wrapping around your liver, your intestines, and your pancreas. Visceral fat is highly aggressive. Unlike hip fat, it functions like an active organ, churning out inflammatory signals and disrupting your insulin pathways. In a 2025 review, published in Clinical and Experimental Obstetrics and Gynecology, researchers confirmed this exact shift. They noted that estrogen deficiency drives visceral fat accumulation, specifically by altering estrogen receptor pathways in the brain that govern both appetite and energy allocation. The shape change you are experiencing isn't random. Your body didn't lose control. Its internal management system just changed the rules. This next mechanism catches almost everyone by surprise. Mechanism 2. Estrogen decline makes your cells less responsive to insulin. Estrogen plays a direct daily role in regulating your insulin sensitivity, especially within your skeletal muscle. When estrogen is stable, your muscles efficiently absorb glucose from your bloodstream to use for energy, keeping your circulating blood sugar low. But as estrogen drops, your muscle cells become resistant to the signal. Glucose lingers in your bloodstream longer, forcing your pancreas to pump out extra insulin to clear it. The problem? Elevated insulin is one of the body's most powerful fat storage signals, and it specifically commands your body to store that excess energy in your abdomen. Drawing on data from the multi-decade SWAN cohort, a 2025 review confirmed a clear association between this midlife estrogen decline and a heightened risk of insulin resistance and metabolic changes. This is exactly why simply cutting calories often stops working. It's not a failure of willpower. Your insulin response has shifted, and a body processing insulin differently requires a completely different nutritional strategy. This third mechanism is rarely explained in standard checkups. We covered this in a previous video regarding the 3 a.m. waking and that early morning cortisol spike. Here is exactly how that connects directly to belly fat. As estrogen and progesterone fluctuate and fall, your baseline cortisol rises. But here is the piece most women are never told. Visceral fat cells in your abdomen contain significantly more cortisol receptors than fat cells anywhere else in your body. Cortisol binds to these receptors, activating enzymes that aggressively pull fatty acids out of your blood and lock them into your abdomen. To make matters worse, visceral fat cells contain an internal enzyme that actually regenerates cortisol locally, making the stress effect inside your belly even stronger than what a blood test would show. A comprehensive 2025 review in clinical obesity established a clear research consensus. HPA axis dysregulation, the exact neurological stress loop that destabilizes during menopause, specifically drives visceral fat expansion via these abdominal receptors. The sleep disruption you are facing compounds this every single night. Poor sleep is a massive trigger for cortisol elevation. If you are waking up wired at 3 a.m., that hormonal spike is actively fueling this storage mechanism while you sleep. The 3 a.m. waking, the rising stress response, and the stubborn belly fat are not three separate problems. They are the exact same hormonal cascade expressing itself in three different ways. Mechanism 4 is the silent multiplier. It's the shift that makes all the other mechanisms worse. Skeletal muscle is your body's primary metabolic engine. It burns the vast majority of the glucose you consume and dictates your resting metabolic rate, the baseline calories your body burns just to stay alive. During perimenopause, declining estrogen accelerates muscle loss. In fact, data from the SWAN study found that lean muscle mass begins declining at the very onset of the menopausal transition, the exact same window where fat accumulation accelerates. You are simultaneously losing the tissue that burns energy and gaining the tissue that stores it. Observational and interventional trials compiled in a 2024 review in Physiologia confirmed that postmenopausal women require highly intentional resistance training to counteract this estrogen-driven muscle decline. Furthermore, the data suggests that our actual protein requirements for maintaining that vital muscle are higher than standard generic dietary guidelines state. This is why the extreme calorie deficits that worked in your 30s yield almost no results in your 40s. Your resting metabolic rate has fundamentally shifted, not because you've gotten lazy, but because your hormones have rewritten the rules of your metabolism. Let's bring this entire picture together. 1. An estrogen drop shifts your fat storage from your hips to your abdomen. 2. Rising insulin resistance means your cells store energy rather than burning it. 3. Elevated cortisol specifically targets those deep abdominal fat cells. 4. And muscle loss slows down the baseline metabolic engine that used to clear it all. 4 distinct mechanisms, all triggered by the exact same hormonal transition, acting at the exact same time. None of them are about a lack of discipline. Now you understand what's actually happening, let's talk about what the evidence says actually helps. I've broken this into 3 distinct tiers. This is not a prescription, and you should always work with your healthcare provider. This is designed to help you understand your options, so you can have a genuinely informed conversation. Tier 1 relates to nutrition and movement. The nutritional approach that addresses insulin resistance is meaningfully different from standard calorie restriction. The research points toward prioritizing protein at every meal, Aim for 25 to 30 grams per meal, not just per day. Consistent meal timing. Reducing refined carbohydrates, and moving eating windows earlier in the day where possible. This is not about eating less, it's about eating in a way that stabilizes insulin rather than repeatedly spiking it. We have spoken about alcohol in previous videos, and even 1 or 2 drinks significantly worsen second-half sleep, spike cortisol, and directly impair the liver's ability to manage glucose. If belly fat is your primary concern right now, alcohol is something worth looking at. For movement, resistance training is getting a lot of coverage right now, and for good reason. It is the most mechanistically appropriate exercise for this transition. A 2024 study published in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise found that a resistance training program improved strength and balance in women across different menopausal stages. Resistance training preserves and builds muscle, the tissue that drives metabolic rate and directly counters mechanism 4. If your current approach is primarily cardio-based, the evidence suggests resistance training needs to be at least equal priority from this point forward. Tier 2 relates to supplement support. Beyond the food and movement side of things, some women look into whether certain supplements have a role to play, and that's a reasonable conversation to have. I'll mention a couple, not as recommendations, but so you know what's being discussed and can raise them with your GP. The first is magnesium. It's a mineral involved in a huge number of processes in the body, including some of the same pathways around sleep and stress regulation. So for some women, especially if sleep is part of the picture, it's one worth asking about. The second is omega-3, the fatty acids found in oily fish. There's long-standing interest in omega-3 for brain and general health, and it's one of the more well-established options people explore in midlife. I want to be really honest, supplements are not a magic bullet, but there is a lot of research and evidence available for you to look into. They're a supporting act, and as always, have a chat with your GP or pharmacist before starting anything new, particularly if you're on other medications. What's right for one woman isn't right for another. Tier 3 is about the medical conversation with your doctor, and this one is important. Hormone replacement therapy does not cause weight gain. This is one of the most persistent myths in women's health, and the evidence contradicts it directly. A study of over 1,000 women published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that current HRT users had significantly reduced total and visceral adiposity compared to women who had never used it, with lower abdominal fat and better lean body mass preservation. A 2026 clinical review confirmed that the evidence from randomized trials and meta-analyses shows HRT attenuates central fat accumulation and preserves favorable body composition compared to no treatment. HRT is prescribed for symptoms, not weight management specifically, but the body composition data is part of the clinical picture you deserve to understand. My last video spoke specifically about HRT, and I recommend you look at that video next if you've not seen it already. If you've spent years telling yourself you're not trying hard enough, not disciplined enough, not consistent enough, I hope this video made you realize that you or your body didn't suddenly become lazy. It became hormonally different. The biology changed. The advice didn't. Most healthcare systems still don't routinely connect the belly fat picture to hormone status. Most women are still told to eat less and move more, without anyone explaining that the metabolic rulebook has changed. And understanding that helps us to make sense of what is happening in our bodies. That is what this channel is here to change. Thank you for staying with me to this point. Now that we have talked about what we are experiencing, let's talk about next steps. First, change the frame. This is not a discipline problem. It's a metabolic problem caused by hormonal transition. That changes both what you try and how hard you are on yourself. Second, shift the movement. If your exercise is primarily cardio-based, start adding 2 resistance training sessions a week, not instead of cardio, in addition. Third, prioritize protein. Aim for 25 to 30 grams at each meal. This stabilizes blood sugar, reduces the insulin spikes that drive abdominal fat storage, and supports the muscle mass your metabolism depends on. Fourth, have the conversation. Book an appointment with your GP and specifically name what you've been experiencing. Ask about insulin resistance, body composition changes, and what hormonal options might be worth discussing in your situation. The next video in this series covers something that frightens a lot of women more than belly fat. It's about the brain fog, the word-finding difficulties, the feeling that your mind isn't working the way it used to, and the question a lot of women are quietly asking, whether this might be early dementia. It's not, but you deserve the full explanation. That's what's next. If this is the first time someone has told you that the belly fat you're experiencing is hormonal, you are not alone. Please subscribe. This channel is built to be the resource most of us never had. I'll see you in the next one.